And welcome to another episode of Maryville Talks. My name is AJ Fox, and I'm the Alumni Relations Manager here at Maryville. Today, we're going to be talking about how to refresh some of the spaces in our home, and I am so excited to have along with us to help us in that discussion, Marie Boedges. Marie is a 2005 graduate of Maryville with her bachelor's in interior design, and she is the owner of Marie Design Studio, where she's joining us today, which is her business in the St. Louis region, focusing on residential design. So Marie, thank you so much for joining us today and lending us your insight.
Oh, you are so welcome. I am so excited to be a part of this series. I think it's really exciting to give all of our alumni all this information.
That's right. And we are so thankful for our alumni experts like yourself. And so we have been talking about kind of some of those areas, and we'll get into them a little bit later on kind of refreshing those spaces now that we've entered a new year. And of course, after the last year that we've had, everybody's looking for a chance to kind of start new. But before we do that, I think it's incredibly important to have you just talk to us about what is interior design? Because of course, I think there's and certainly I've fallen victim to this too, thinking that interior design is just kind of the decorating aspect, which of course is one part, but I'm sure you'll tell us, interior design can be so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. So interior design to me, it's about not just making something look really nice, but it's making it very functional. So to be in a really well-functioning space, it needs to feel organized and orderly and make it to where your anxiety level is low being in that space. So a really well-designed space isn't just about being pretty or being trendy, let's just say. It's much more about who's using the space, what do you do to that space to make the user feel the best in that space. And interior design has so many aspects. I do residential design, mainly kitchens and baths, but the whole entire home is really what I'm able to do. But you can find interior design in any atmosphere, whether it's an airport or a hotel or a lobby of any big building you walk into, or just an office space. They all have interior design aspects and needs that usually need some help.
Right, and you're not just coming in at the end of those projects oftentimes. You really work with folks from architects and engineers all the way through kind of the design elements at the end. As an interior designer, you're going back to the blueprints sometimes of these homes.
Yeah, actually, that's really my favorite part, really. So one thing I have to say is when I decided I want to become an interior designer, I remember telling my mom, and she thought I was just going to fluff pillows or put little accents on people's shelves all day. And when I explained to her how Maryville's program teaches you how to design spaces from starting at a blueprint, learning how to read and make blueprints, you have a whole architectural aspect to becoming an interior designer. I remember I had a friend who was going to school for architecture in Chicago the same time that I was going to school for interior design, and we were doing the exact same things as each other up until the structural mathematics that were needed. I didn't have to do those things. But I love when a client is working on a new home, for example, and they have an architect they're working with or a builder, and they have a blueprint, and I can go through the blueprint with them, figuring out the layout of the walls, understanding if this is the correct size for the living room or the kitchen or the dining room or the bedroom, maybe moving doorways, moving closet spaces, understanding spatially what the best spaces are for people, and maybe moving things around to make it make more sense for that family. And then from there, we create palettes, finishes, and not just finishes. For me, it's so much more in depth. We work with the plumbing, we work with cabinetry, we work with all the specifications of products, and I love that part of it. So I'm getting into the mechanicals of how all the home is built with a client.
Yeah, I mean, and interior design, it sounds like from talking to you, really involves project management as well, because as you said, you've got to take it from those structural elements, working with architects and engineers, to then the kind of craftsmen who are building all of these and putting together your vision. And then at the end of the process is when I think kind of your mother's and kind of my initial instinct was, oh yeah, then the interior design comes in and picks out the paint colors. But by the time you got to that point, you've already done an incredible amount of work. And I know that you had mentioned it's important, that in designing a space, you want it to be both trendy, of course, but working backwards, it needs to be efficient and effective for what it needs to be used for. And then that really interior design can have a huge impact on emotions as well, and kind of mental well-being of people in that space. And so I think you talked a little bit about how it feels, but that's a huge element of interior design, right?
Absolutely, I did. So, in looking at who's going to use the space, whether it's an older couple or a very young couple or a single man or anything, is there a lot of children in this space? Is there not? Is it an office space? Is it just a hangout space? Understanding what you're wanting to do in that space is number one important for us. We listen really, really well to the client to understand who's going to use it, what time of the day are they using it, for example, a bathroom even. What do they need to do to get themselves from A to B. So if that means they're getting up using this space and trying to get out the door, we want to make it a space that A, feels good and enlightening when you're in that space. Doesn't make them feel stressed out or dark or burdened feeling at all. We want to make the chaos not start at that point. We want to make it very not chaotic feeling in that space. All of those atmospheric things that we're doing to the design of the space changes how they feel. We don't want someone to ever feel depressed. And I feel like depression is a huge thing that's been happening in the last year. And maybe that's why so many people have been coming and trying to redesign spaces. I feel like this industry is huge. It already was huge, very, very, very busy. And last year, really everyone being at home and in different environments have noticed how they feel different being stuck in one specific space. Maybe it's not making them feel good about themselves or feel good about the space they're in because there's not enough lighting or not enough colors or not the right kind of organization for them. And that leaves them feeling dismal and maybe more stressed out and just depressed that they're not moving or being in a good, clean environment. So I think interior design, crazy enough, looks at all those aspects. Even if you weren't in COVID series or in a place where you were stuck at home and you were just wanting to redesign your bathroom, and it was a regular time frame through the year, having a space where we can create it to make someone feel really, really good about themselves while they're in that space, so they can leave feeling refreshed and re-energized and organized and ready to start their day, helps them go at their day with a better, emotion overall for themselves, well-being.
Right. And that was why I'm so glad that you're here to talk to us today, because we're going to talk about exactly that. And you just, I didn't have an appreciation until we had a chance to talk about the impact of your space on your physical and mental and emotional well-being. And so today it's a great segue, because today we're going to talk about trying to do some of that refresh and how folks can do that, especially because we've been many of us kind of in our homes a lot more and over the last year. And I think it's good to try to combat some of those problems that you've talked about. And today we're going to talk about some ways to do that. But before we get to some of your tips and tricks on how to refresh some of those spaces, it's so important that you shared with me in our pre-discussion a chance and an idea on how to really even tackle these, right? So you don't want to just go jumping headfirst into some of these ideas. There is a little bit of a process, a big process that you take upon when you work with your clients. But let's talk about and have you walk us through how folks should approach projects, starting with how to identify which projects you want to approach.
Exactly. So we are huge about planning, plan. And then we work our plan. So that means when you come to me, yeah, you might be 5 seconds excited about, oh my gosh, I think I want to rip out everything in my house and redo it. And I want it done tomorrow. That's not how this works, not even a little bit. I think the most important thing is understanding, first of all, a budget. We help you do that with a client. Understanding not just what your budget is, how much you want to spend, but how much is a good investment in your home, and then to back that into specific details, right? So does that mean you're done with this room, you want to swap it out and start over from scratch? That sounds great, but what does that mean in reflection to, let's say you can't use that space the whole time that we are doing your project. Also, we aren't going to do this project tomorrow. We have to design it and plan it and price things out and have contractors come in and bid, doing the electrical, the plumbing and HVAC and drywall work. All those things have to get bid out and then scheduled once you approve moving forward with those. We have to order materials, and the scheduling of that takes a really long time, honestly. So I like to look at doing a large project of any kind, kind of as having a baby. There is a whole process of planning so you can enjoy the space in the end. And we take about 9 months from when you meet with me in the very beginning to understanding exactly this whole process from start to completion, and then doing the job while we're in your space. And we do everything. I like to call our company a design and build company. So we design it, and then we also do handling all of the installation. We manage it all. We get permits. We We handle the inspections, and we handle all of the crew. We have hired on, so our company has employed installers, and then we do subcontract out other installers as well. But we handle all of those processes. And one thing that's important is understanding really all the parts and pieces you need done in your home. So let's say you wanted to tackle just the idea of this space doesn't feel done. Well, what doesn't feel done about it? Is it just never been painted since you moved in? Are the baseboards missing? Is the window trimmed out inappropriately or not right at all or not finished? It might just be some little aspects. Maybe there's some DIY projects that you could do to kind of give you a goal, a start to finish goal. And I think all those things are important just in relationship to creating plans for yourself personally in your home, for your family. Whether we can help you with that or not, I love to help every single project, but sometimes it's just understanding from who owns the home what the overall goal looks like for them. If the overall goal is completely refreshing the whole entire house, it looks 100% different in the end. That is a different mindset than someone saying, I just wish this room felt more white or bright. Maybe that's new lighting. Maybe that's new accessories or trim work in the room. Maybe it's just parts and pieces instead of tearing out every single thing in the house and remodeling the whole entire space. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think as we've talked about with this new year as well, folks are coming in and they've got some new goals for themselves, and they may have some resolutions. And you may not, your resolution, you may not think has an application to the space that you live in, but it might. And that's where that kind of broad focus of interior design comes together. And so, aligning your, I think you've asked, like, what do you want this space to do? Or what do you want to do? What's your goal? And then how can the space help you get there? And so aligning your projects in your home space with the physical space around you with those mental, emotional, and physical well-being goals.
Exactly. I think a lot of this talked about if it was realistic or not too. So just thinking about what people do on January 1st, every year there is a New Year resolution, right? Is it achievable? Half the time, no, it's not. Is your time frame to get it done realistic? Usually it's not. And so I think the whole idea is great. It's the new year. It's the new year for a million reasons for people, right? It's the year of vaccines. It's the year of all the things that people wished had happened last year. Anyway, whatever it is, the point is, if we're going to create goals for yourself, whether they're a health journey, maybe a family journey, all the things that you want, maybe it's an educational journey for yourself, going back to school, maybe you change your career, maybe you want to decide to have a family this year, whatever it is, if the environment you're in is not promoting that goal, you won't stick to it. So great examples, let's say you decide you want to become an avid runner this year. Well, and we get snow every single day and you haven't trained at all and you go out for a big run one day and it's great, but then the next day you're like, oh, it's freezing, I don't really want to do that. If you would have created a space inside your home, maybe with a treadmill, that would help, right? Well, if that treadmill also had something to keep you busy or excited about the space, that would help too. A TV or a big open area or a fan to blow on you or some lights. So it's not just dropped into the corner of your basement in an ugly environment that you don't want to go into, right? How are you going to make a goal happen if you aren't creating an environment for that goal? So also same thing, if you wanted to go back to school and get a degree in something else or get your master's and you decided to study it from home, do homeschooling for yourself, right? In college, it's a very big opportunity, especially through Maryville. So how do you do that in an environment that maybe is filled with kids and family? You need to create a space you can go into to study and get your work done or do Zoom classes. If you don't have that, you're probably not going to be successful at getting your goal. Same thing for if you choose to renovate this year. If we don't plan it properly, we can't create the goal that you need. And all of this in the end is really about designing your life. I feel like that's just the whole entire thing in a nutshell. We can help design your life with you by creating a space that's for the environment needed for that goal.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of if you think about it as manufacturing almost in the industrial side of design, that factory is produced is created to produce something and it has a goal in mind, an output. And like you said, if your goal is to become a better runner, then you need to even think about how you can design a space that promotes that goal and promotes your ability to get it. So in terms of a plan, from what I've heard from you, it's kind of align it with your personal goals, and how can your space help you achieve the goals that you have that may be even bigger than that. But it's about aligning your life, as you said, to make sure you're headed towards that goal. And then being very realistic on your budget, which kind of helps with the scope of the project, and then your timeline too. And as I'm sure you've noticed, you've had a huge influx of business, as have a lot of home remodel and design and kind of elements there. But also there's been material shortages, both because of the demand and also because of the constraints the virus and the pandemic has put on the production side of things too. So being very realistic on all of those elements so that you don't set yourself up. I'm sure you see a lot of clients who come to you after they've tried and are very disappointed because their expectations did not meet what was able to be actually realistically met.
That's exactly correct. We have that conversation up front all of the time. Some people cannot hear what I'm saying, that it's going to take a lot longer than you automatically think it will in your head because, yay, HGTV made it seem like it takes 3 weeks to do the whole project. But that means you have to have everything picked out, ready to go, ordered, and on site, and have a gajillion people of crew, and you need to move out of your house. It's impossible. It's not how the world works. So planning, understanding that realistic expectations are important, having conversations about that is very important to have upfront, and being available. That's a really hard thing too, is being able to drop what you're doing and be able to work on the goal. If the goal is the renovating project, that's huge, right? But if the goal is also running, or the goal is doing something else outside of your normal everyday life, and you don't have the availability to do that, you need to set time aside to make sure you're obtaining your goal.
I could just hear thousands of hearts being broken when you alluded to the fact that reality television might not be a realistic view of some of these projects.
Yep. If only I could have my own show to show you really what it's like.
And here we are 12 weeks later, we're waiting on a part for the kitchen.
Exactly.
So this is great because that gives us a great overview of kind of the scope of design that is so much bigger than paint swatches and throw pillows. And now we have kind of a framework for our plan, right? Align it with our goals and be very realistic and open and honest with ourselves and with anybody who's going to help us. And I think that is a big part too, is as we start to talk about these other pieces, find out what we can do ourselves and what we should put some resources aside to hire some help, whether that be that we don't have the time to do it, or maybe we don't have, YouTube is great for how-tos, but maybe we don't quite have the expertise to replumb our bathroom. And those might be times when we need to really sit down, as you're talking about, go through your plan and say, okay, I can do these things. I need to find somebody to help me with those. And of course, if you're working with an interior designer, that's a great person to help you make some of those decisions.
Right, we have resources at our hand at all times.
So now we have 3 areas that we're going to talk about and just really talk about the nitty gritty, some great ideas that you have on how folks can make these special, because we now know how to create a plan and we know what we need to really work into that plan in terms of thinking about how this is going to help our whole selves and lives. And so let's start with the 3 areas are our home, where of course we've lived more than we ever have before, our work at home spaces, which we're doing a lot more than ever before, and that may be a trend that continues far into the future as well. And then also many of us, both as adults and some of our family members as well, are learning from home, either full or part-time now. And so those are 3 huge impacts on this one space that we want to do it all. But let's start with our house. And this is really where the holiday decorations have probably hopefully come down at this point. And then we're kind of seeing all these things. We're stuck in here because it's cold outside at the moment. So talk to us about really refreshing our home spaces now that the kind of luster of the holidays is gone and we're facing this march towards spring before we can get back outside.
Right. So I think this kind of jumps back to goals again, right? So I think one thing that we all are looking at doing is create the next thing to look forward to. And Christmas was here, right? Even if you were not, Catholic or whatever, with having the trees and decorations up, it's the spirit, it's the atmosphere, it's the idea of giving and receiving and all those great things that come with that. So when you take down all of your holiday decorations, sometimes people feel down about that. So instead of feeling down about that, or if you're at that spot now where you took everything down and you're looking at your room like, oh, it doesn't look very finished or complete
It's
in here.
barren and empty in here.
Let's
Yeah.
just get a piece of paper and write down what doesn't look complete in here. You know, did the tree come down and you realize, oh, I never painted that baseboard back there. Put that on your to-do list. There should be some to-do list items here. Maybe you really loved having all the decorations up because there was a whole glow of lighting in your home. And when that goes away, all of a sudden it's really dark in your home. Maybe we need to add some can lighting to your space. Really, I mean, maybe we could put in your living room can lights around the outside perimeter. Maybe we need to get new lamps. Maybe instead of putting up what you had up before on the shelves, or if you didn't have, so many people have in their house, no pictures on their wall. No, they didn't ever do it. They've lived there for 4 years, but they still haven't put things on their walls. Now's the time. But start by putting a list together, room by room, of things that you think are missing or damaged, or, you know, there's a huge ding in the wall I never fixed, or my blinds actually are cracked and I just ignore it every day, but you know they need to be fixed. Those are simple things you can do room by room and create a quick to-do list. And then knock the things off your to-do list. Some of these things are simple DIY things you could do in your home, in your own house. Maybe it's just get some new little rugs in spaces. So maybe your kitchen or the back door or the foyer just needs a cute rug in the space. Maybe your dining room rug is really stained and gross and you need a new rug in that room. Little things like that change how it feels in the room, especially if you can touch the lighting. And if lighting means, you know what, I can't afford to get can lighting in this space, get some lamps, get some larger lamps, get multiple different aspects of lights in a room so you can have the environment to make it feel cozy and or energetic. If you'd like to make it like, you know, we're all having game night or family game night or doing a puzzle together or something, we want to make it so it doesn't feel dismal in your space and you feel happy being in that space with whomever it is. I feel like that's a simple thing to do. So creating a list of something you can look forward to getting done or completed room by room. And then if you realize in doing that, it turns into, yep, I think it's time for us to rip out our kitchen. Understand next what it is that you're not liking about your kitchen space. It's too small, it's too tight, or my oven doesn't work, period. Or I have no microwave. So many people, I get in their home and they say, oh, my appliances haven't worked for a couple of years. What have you been doing? You've been using a plug-in skillet instead of your cooktop because it hasn't worked. So those are big things on your list that are achievable, but it needs to be put on a list. Don't just think, how much is it going to cost to do the whole entire thing? That's a huge undertaking to put together. So again, creating a goal, creating a list for you, and then hiring a designer or an installer or a professional of some kind to come in. So you have a leaky shower head or a toilet that just won't stop running. Call a plumber. Let's get someone out there that's a professional that knows how to fix it. And that one thing can get checked off your list. Makes you feel better.
That's so great. And I think the one element that I would add is as you're making that list, try not to get downtrodden. And as you were saying, you know, you can very easily get overwhelmed. And then that leads to that list getting put back in the drawer and those problems existing. And even though you're not thinking about them every day, when you live in that space and you know, in your subconscious that the blinds are cracked or there's all these little things. And I think that was what was really great for me, is you talked about all these little things that can be solved with, you know, maybe 5, 10, 20 or under $100. You can really take off a lot of those things. And it's about dedicating that time to it. And really putting yourself into that list, because most of these are quick fixes. And I remember when we moved in, there were no window coverings on any of the windows in our house. And so, you know, it took us a long time to finally do it. But then I just said, you know, I'm going to take a weekend, I'm going to order those blinds and I'm going to install them, because we're done with the tension rod bed sheet over our bedroom window. Like, you know, there's so many of those things that once you live with them for a few days, then they become permanent fixtures, but they weigh on you in a tremendous way.
And you don't see it all of a sudden, but someone else does see it. And just if you saw it finished and pretty, and that sounds, again, cliche, like, oh, it just needs to be pretty. But sometimes just having a space that feels completed and put together makes you have less anxiety about anything going on after you're out of that space. And to go from there, right? So create this list. If the list seems really, really overwhelming and too big, just look at the first 3 things and then schedule yourself on your calendar to go shop for that thing on this day at this time frame. So I'm the kind of person, if it's not on my calendar, I might not get it done. My calendar is filled to the brim, but it includes personal things that I need to get done in there. On my calendar every day, it says run because I have to have it on my calendar. Otherwise, I'm going to fill it in with something else and get something else done instead. So prioritize your needs. If you just need to get maybe a hinge fixed on a squeaky door. Put on the calendar that Thursday at 6 p.m. you're gonna go fix the hinge on your door. So it's simple things like that that doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is a lot to get to the
Right.
end goal.
Right, and I think that's very important. And to split that list off, as you talked about, into these are the things that I can do, and I'm going to start scheduling these out. And then these are the projects that I may need to sit down with my family and say, okay, here are the things that I would like to do or that we need to fix in our home. What can we do budget-wise, time-wise? What are we willing to sacrifice in terms of giving up a space if it needs to be completely renovated? But also, as difficult as it can be, and as kind of as much weight as can be put on as you're making that list, when you start to check those things off, it will really build momentum in a positive direction. I can tell you a can of WD-40 on squeaky hinges is crazy. We had some, and I did that a few months ago, and the pride it felt when you were done 15 minutes later after paper towels and a can of WD-40 and all the hinges in the house moved smoothly and quietly, huge.
Also, this sounds crazy, but clean the nooks and crannies in your shower and re-caulk it. Give it a weekend to do that. Go shower in a different bathroom. That's the silliest, simplest thing, but just seeing that, oh, I don't have that gross corner in the bathroom shower anymore, and it's clean and caulked, and I know no water will get in there. That is a good peace of mind, and it's something you're doing healthy for your house. You have to take care of your house, period. You have to have great upkeep on your home. It's your job to do that. So all these things are important, not just for you, but for your actual house to have longevity. So.
And it's so important, as you said, make that list and then grab a plan to tackle each one, whether that's, as you mentioned, just put it on your calendar and buy a rug, and I'm going to go shopping, I'm going to get rugs, I'm going to throw these out, I'm going to replace all the rugs, or I'm going to do the hinges. And then for those that, sometimes for me too, I've got this idea in my head, but I can't make the space in my life. Then maybe it's a matter of, okay, I need to commit more resources and have somebody help me do that.
I do get some people too who are like, oh, I'm going to tile my own backsplash. I'll do it myself. I'll install it myself. And I can't afford to have someone do it for me. Oh, but then you need to go buy a tile saw and be able to cut well and know what you're doing and have time to do it physically. So you could decide in your head you'd like to tackle that job. And then once you realize how much time you have to give up to do that, how much money you have to spend on your own to get that done, or you could have hired someone that got it done in probably a day and a half. It's looking at what is the value of one stress versus the other non-stress. So.
Right. It's the age-old life problem of money versus time, and you get
a lot of times I tell people, if you don't know how to do it and you can't afford it right now, let's not do it right now. Let's do it when we can afford it and figure out something in the meantime that we can make it look nice until then.
Right, but there are so many things that I think you've outlined that are great, just little fixes that you might already have the paint downstairs in the basement to go touch everything up, but schedule a weekend, make sure it's done, and then it's one less thing that you walk around the house and notice, and you can feel good about making progress and getting started. So those are all great tips on refreshing our home, but our home is now also, for some and many of us, our office. And as I am standing in our guest bedroom right here, it's, a lot of these spaces are making, they're multifunction, and we're trying to, this and the education spaces in our home, as you mentioned earlier, then we need to start thinking about mental and even sometimes physical barriers between the two spaces. But as many of us work from home and may be doing that in the future, talk to us about how we need to prepare or take a second look, as we might have had a makeshift stand or we've created a home office. What are some ways that as we enter this new year and maybe a new era of working from home, that we can really take a look at and make sure that our space is working for us?
Yep, exactly. So I think this is humongous. So many people that I talk to say, you know what, I think that I'm going to be staying working from home for at least the next 6 to 9 months, maybe forever. My company really likes how this is working for me. So when you got into this environment in the first place, you just made a quick makeshift office and it worked. Then you got into the office and worked every day in that office that didn't feel like an office, and you never had time to just jump back in there and make it feel different. I think at this point you need to reevaluate. Think in your head, okay, in my work office, when I left the house, what did I have in there every single day to make my life physically work being in that space? Where did I have my stapler, my extra paper, my sticky notes, my pens, my pencils, the calculator? Where did I have those components before? Did I have them in a drawer? And I don't even have a drawer now. Maybe I need to think about buying a new desk, number one. Maybe we think about filing. How did you file things before? Is it paper files at all? Is it just everything on your computer? Do you have the right computer to hold all of that information? Is it your home computer and also now your work computer? Secondly, do you have the right Wi-Fi in your house? Most people did not when this whole thing started. So have you done something sort of temporary that maybe should be looked at as a future add on to your home? And that said, all these things we're talking about adding on, talk to your company that you work for and see how could they benefit you in helping you create the right environment for yourself. If you want to be the most productive you can be, you need to not have your printer on the second floor and you're in the basement working. So think about that in terms of what besides steps, I'm gaining steps every day and running it back and forth, but is it really that productive for me to go back and forth and back and forth? Also, do you have the right printer? Do you have a printer right now that you're changing ink once a week because it's just this $69 printer that you got? Maybe you need to invest into a better printer or have the company you work for try to help you with that as well, just to offset the difference for that. And then comes lighting, right? You probably worked in an office environment that had big fluorescent lights and it was very well lit, as in it was bright in the space. Maybe the space you're in now doesn't even have an overhead light and you're hoping that daylight won't go away so that way your lamps just glow around your head. So, and maybe you like to work really early in the morning or later at night, but the environment you're in is not helping for that atmosphere. So let's look at lighting now. Let's look at putting light fixtures in the ceiling or change the light fixture you have in the ceiling. Maybe can lighting around the outside of the walls, maybe getting new lamps that actually work for your space. Overhead light, so a lamp that comes down and shines directly on top of your paper instead of just like a bedroom night lamp. All of those items are very important to creating the space you need and the environment it needs to be. Also, maybe a fresh coat of paint. Are you stuck in the basement where there's not even drywall? That's a good thing to think about. Maybe you need to think about, you know what, maybe we should tackle putting some drywall in here and finish the wall off. Are you working in a bedroom that doesn't have any office space and you're standing at a dresser? Some of those things are actually what's helpful and not helpful to know about what could work or could not work better for you. Are you having to move around because you have Zoom meetings here with people that are, not needing to know what it's like in your house, Zoom meetings over here? So are you running around your house all day long trying to create a space for you? Instead, let's just create a space for you. So that way your work can stay in that space and you can stay in that space to get your work done. Secondly, I think this is important is what closes off your space from the rest of your home. So if you quickly just need a snack or a bathroom break or anything at all, and you've got the rest of your family in the house, and so you leave your office, but everyone's out there doing a million things, and now you got bombarded with everybody. They need to understand when work is on or work is off. Maybe that is a sign on the door, or maybe you're wearing the sign while you're walking out, whatever it is. Maybe put a small refrigerator in your office space so you don't have to leave and go into a play zone at the same time. I feel like all those things are important, and your company you work for respects your home needs. And if they better understood also, you know what, this time frame works really well for me because it can be as loud as it needs to be in my home and I can have whatever I need to get done, but I can't have Zoom meetings that are very loud at this time frame because I have a baby napping in the room next to me or whatever. Having those conversations with your company will be helpful too. It'll make your overall stress maybe go down as well because you can schedule things around what's working best for you in your own home. So design a space, light it up well, organize yourself with things, get, where are all your supplies for being whatever you do for a job. Like for me, I would need a drafting table at home. I need drawing paper. I need a triangle and scales. I need to be able to roll out blueprints. A home environment, I take up a lot of space when I'm in there. So if I have to be in there and I don't have a space, I'm at the dining room table. So I have to have my own office at my office at home. So versus being here in my showroom, it's much easier.
Yeah, and I mean, that is such a great overview of everything that you need to be productive and really to engage and try to replicate that productive work environment that you had at the office back at home. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me too was you got to be comfortable, and whatever the comfort level or the environment that you need to be into around making you most productive. So whatever that is, Lighting seems to be a big key, but then also those other elements, temperature, or whether you're sitting or standing, and how to make that. So those elements too, I think, would probably come into play too, right?
Right. Maybe you need a space heater in your space. Maybe you're in the basement and it's just really chilly all the time and you're not used to that and you don't want to wear a blanket while you're working at your desk freezing. Get a space heater down there and understand maybe we need to insulate this room. That's not a bad idea. Think about that. Maybe we could put more furniture in that space to just help with the noise. Maybe it's very noisy in your space or everything echoes, or you can just hear everything through the walls. Now is the time to think about, well, what can we do to solve that? A lot of fabric panels can be installed in places to create a noise barrier. Simple things can be done to fix it. It doesn't have to be a 3-month project to fix your office. It could be a weekend. And intentionally spending a weekend for that. So you walk in on Monday and feel, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I really love this space that I'm in. Maybe you put a coffee pot or a Keurig in your office so you can think, okay, this is great. I've got my own little space. I never had this before, but now I do. So just thinking about it like that, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to your original point about how you feel when you walk in a space. And I think, at the heart of interior design, that's how it really is meant to be. How does someone feel? Both how do they physically interact with the space and what's the outcome of it, but how do they feel when they walk into it? And especially if you're going to be working and you need to be productive and making sure that you're providing the value that you need to your organization or your business. And you have to do that now just from home. Maybe your commute is a flight of stairs, but you also want to feel like you're excited to go to that space, and that you want to be there, because you're not going to be productive if you're going down to the basement dungeon where it's cold all day and you hear the pitter patter of noises and feet and clanging of dishes upstairs.
Now might not.
Thinking about how you feel and how, what is the utopian view of that space.
Exactly right. Again, the whole goal would be anything you can do to create your space to not feel stressful or not feel anxiety and to feel happy and productive and ready to move to the next thing. You can't be productive and then you can't feel great about not being productive. And so then it lingers on you to the next day and you don't want that to happen. You also don't want the idea that you have to roll out of bed and boom, you're in your office already. So gosh, I hope your office is not in your master bedroom. So that way you can actually leave that space and have a healthy environment. If you can't have a window, create the environment of something that feels like a window with a lot of lighting, or maybe you need music in your room, maybe put a radio in the space, or just some noise to block off everything around you. Now, if you have a job where you maybe are the only home provider, you're the only adult in the home, and you have a baby at home, I can't make you block yourself off from the rest of the house if you know you have to have that baby near you. So instead, we create an environment where we can maybe have a play space for that child in the same room as you, so you know it's a safe environment. Or maybe now is the time to look at investing into a nanny that's in your home every day, or a grandmother, or someone who comes into your home. And then we need to think of a space to make them feel comfortable as well. So it's not just a simple quick fix. There's a lot of thinking involved in planning, but again, that's where that checklist comes into play, and understanding a list of what it is that you need. Now, what can we actually meet on that list?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it was so enlightening just to think about going back to what's my goal. And if the goal is to be productive at work, then how do I align my space and everything that I need to do to get there? So it really ties back into that big planning. And now you mentioned taking care of a little one, and so many of us now have are ourselves, and we may roll out of bed in the morning, go to work, and then go back to school at the same time, or we've got multiple people both working and learning in the same space. So home learning spaces are now something that we didn't necessarily have, but now we have students and our, some of our children, possibly other family members, who are doing their jobs by learning and are now having to do that in the same space and face some of the same challenges that those of us who are working from home. So talk to us about how to set up successful learning spaces.
Absolutely. I think this is humongous again, too. So first of all, the idea of learning from home, you already learn from home as a child, but in a way where you know someone is right next to you, shoulder to shoulder. So now we're relying on a computer-based technology to teach our children in their home environment. I can speak to this from a couple of ways. My children actually go to a school, St. John Lutheran, and they have a home learning environment opportunity, but it's all done in the school. It's been like this for 3 years. So I did watch them already kind of roll out something that really worked for them, where they created their own spaces, their own learning environments for them. They had an opportunity to have maybe your reading time or ELA time is done in this space on this sofa, and that is your space for the next hour to do this and this and this. if you have that kind of thing happening in your home, it's super helpful. Also knowing the age of your child or whoever, it could be a first grader, it could be a senior in high school. They are going to have totally different needs. But number one, they need to know they still have to be prepared for their day. So if they are going into their day without brushing their teeth, still in their pajamas, and eating a Nutri-Grain bar while they're starting their first Zoom class, more than likely they're not going to be super productive in that first section of whatever they're going to have done, whether it's classes or trying to pay attention. I feel like you need to try to give them the same environment that they would have had when they went to school every day. So get them up at the same time, or get them up, you know, if you needed an hour to get ready, give them an hour to get ready. That means that they're awake, they're in the momentum to learn or do whatever, be prepared for their day, get them dressed, take a shower, brush your teeth. Shockingly, those are things that adults still have a hard time with getting, you know, situated from your house life to your work environment and or school environment. So for kids, what do they need? Same thing for you, right? We went through the running list of what do you need to physically do your job every day? What do they need to do their job? Do they need crayons and markers? Do they need scissors? Do they need an art space separate from where their computer could be based at? Do they need a recess area? What do you do for recess? If you just have, you know, a street in front of your house and not much backyard, what could you do to create a space that they can feel like they can go play for 30 minutes, hardcore play, and then they can focus again? Same thing for high schoolers. They've got Zoom classes or they need to go write a paper. Are they doing everything out of their bedroom on their bed? That's probably not going to be the best environment for them. Do they only have their you know, dining room table to work at? If that's the case, we create the dining room space for them between this time to this time. It's completely devoted to them, so they feel like it's special and that they have an area to get things done at. And then I can't speak it enough, but lighting, right? You cannot be ready to go if it's a dim, dark room with a lamp over here and you're trying to focus and pay attention. You can't do that. It's like trying to focus at 10 o'clock at night. It's hard to do for everybody. So get good lighting in the space. Understand, being the parent, right? Maybe you need to right now take intentional time to one day this week, don't work. Ask for a day off so you can really be present with what the kids are doing and understand what they have that's working and what they have that's not. When are they getting the most distracted? When are they needing a snack? When do you need to maybe set the clock for yourself to know, okay, in a school they had a bell ringing constantly and they knew to move on to the next thing the whole entire time. Maybe you need that in your home. And it could just be different for this child than it is for this child, but the idea is get them on a routine, get them on a schedule, and then give them the environment that feels like it's not just their bedroom. And it also can't feel sort of like jail. It's got to be a blend in the middle of the two. But don't put them in front of the television to be able to do their homework or be able to read. It's not going to happen. If they need to do band practice or music or whatever they need to do, and they need a quiet space from everybody else doing things, give them a space that they can close the door off that does not have a TV or something else they can get distracted with. But make sure that space is appropriate for their needs. Maybe that means you're completely redesigning the basement right now for them. Maybe you're creating a jungle gym. Go to Amazon, buy some of those rock wall things, put some carpet on one of your walls and put some rocks on it, give them PE time to go rock climbing down there for a little bit, but then go back to this office space for them that's perfect for their, anything they need from art to math to phonics and whatever.
Yeah, I think some of the things, it seems like there's a lot of overlap, right, between the space that you need for work, and this is their job. And so same principles apply on making sure the environment around them, limiting their distractions. And I really love how you talk about trying as best you can, because sometimes it's not as possible to have different physical spaces for everything, but then trying to organize the single space that they may have in ways that help them break up. Like, okay, if I'm at my, if I'm taking classes, if I'm on Zoom, then I need to have my laptop or Chromebook or whatever I'm using at my desk or at a table. And I think when we were talking earlier, you said it doesn't have to be this $400 fancy desk, a couple of buckets and plywood, or an old TV stand or something, just something where they are upright and focus on this learning, but then also have another space where they can go relax. And as I love,
maybe they want to read a book, but really comfy in it. Go find a beanbag chair that they can have to read a book in and be comfortable. It's unique for them. Maybe get some string lights and hang them from the ceiling in that space to make it feel fun and like, oh, I'm in my one space now. But don't expect them to get a lot of heavy work done in that time frame.
Right, right. And that routine about, especially for almost every child that was going to school, moved around throughout the day or saw different friends, or they had breaks in between their learning, even if they were in the same classroom all day. Sometimes that classroom, they moved around in it, they had different centers, or they saw their friends. And so setting up as much of that as you can in your home, where they move to different spaces, or they have, they understand, and creating those routines, and then setting them up for success as well. I think in our kind of discussions you mentioned, which I really loved, um, uh, making sure they're prepared for that day. So if they have an art tub, or if there's a project coming up, kind of speaking for the younger children, make sure that all those supplies are in there and it's in an organization. Get a little office cube that has little drawers, and one's marked for each subject, and then everything that they need is in there for that subject, so that they know when it's time, I sit here, I pull this out, and I use these tools. And when it's done, I put them all back and put them up there. And then, older kids have a little bit more authority. But as you mentioned, taking some time to make sure that they are accomplishing those things throughout the day, and also asking them, just as you had to ask yourself, ask them what they need. Is it too cold in their room? Is it too dark? Is it not comfortable enough? Do they need a new chair?
Wow.
Anything like that.
Sunny too. I mean, there's so many different things that they didn't ever have to think about being in a school environment before. So I completely agree with that. Making sure they have their own snack time too, and they can make choices for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if let's say you have multiple kids, even if you don't have multiple kids and you're just not used to this routine, get a marker board or get a chalkboard and write on it what is expected at this time, this time, and this time, and then set timers. So you don't realize at 2 p.m. they were supposed to have a Zoom meeting where they had to have this and this and this, and at 2 p.m. you're now running around the house looking for yarn. That doesn't help. So if you can plan the day before, the morning of, something to get it to where you're not last minute hustling around, you're not teaching them anything at that point either. Think about it in terms of you're teaching them how to be prepared so they don't have anxiety.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things to kind of wrap up the importance of this conversation and the work that you do with your clients is this is all really meant to try to help us cope. And there's so much anxiety and stressors in the world right now. And unfortunately, that stressor has also eliminated a lot of the outlets that both adults all the way down to the youngest of children normally have. And so anything we can do to improve these spaces and redesign them, or even just refresh them, so that we and sometimes the project itself, if done correctly and expectations are managed, can be a fun takeaway. I know that we had talked, my wife and I, when we moved into our house, there was nothing in the backyard, and we had a 6-foot drop from our bolted shut door. And we finished that project last year, and so now we have a space outside, and it's been so much of a relief to. And that whole project gave us something to focus on and gave us some excitement to build towards.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, and there's bumps along the road, so you have to be prepared for that. But then when you're working on it and when you finish it, it feels so amazing. And that applies to even those small things like repainting baseboards, fixing marks in walls. That the can of WD-40 in the door hinges, if you just want to get started with one thing, I think that's a great suggestion, because I love doing it. But any other kind of words of wisdom that you could give to us before we part today?
I think just have some grace with yourself too. Like, it's really, really easy to overly think things and then have unachievable goals really fast. But don't also think, okay, I don't have all the money in the world, I can't do all of those things you're saying to do. Okay, well, what can we do? How much money do you have? As in, do you have $50 extra this month? Can you buy a can of paint and just change the color of a space for whoever needs the right environment? If it's you, great, do that. Maybe just whatever that environment is. Maybe you aren't working from home, you're a nurse, you're running in and out, but you need a place to calm down and relax when you get home, and your bathroom is bright red, for example. So maybe we can make that space just have a more calm tone or a calm feeling. There's things you could do that are simple and huge. Just know when you need to call in the big dogs, and yes, we can come in and help with anything that is needed for the space.
Absolutely. And I know that you have a blog that we will post in the description of this video so that folks can go check out ideas and insights that you can share. And of course, if they get along that process and they realize I need an expert here, we will also make sure that they have access to your contact information. And we would love for folks to support our wonderful alumni who are in the interior design space. But I cannot say thank you enough. Again, it's been so wonderful getting a chance to talk to you. I now know the list that's beginning to form in my own head, and I'm sure my wife has hers ready to whip out and start that discussion as well. So I think this is a great time. And since we are, especially during winter and with the pandemic, in our homes, it's also a great opportunity that we wouldn't otherwise have to start tackling some of these so that when we do head back out into the world, we can leave our home and residential space behind knowing that it is in the exact shape that we want it to be. So
I think that's perfect. That's great.
Well, thank you again, Anne-Marie, and for everyone else, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.